Iris went hiking alone in the mountains, but when she came down and was ready to leave, she found her car blocked by another vehicle. A man named Richard got out and asked if she needed help, but what was strange was that, despite the sunny weather, he was holding an umbrella in his hand. Iris had no idea that something terrifying was about to happen. Richard shocked her to stop her from escaping and tied her hands and feet. When Iris woke up, she realized she had fallen into the hands of a dangerous man. She was already tied up, and no matter how hard she struggled, it was useless. Iris tried to use her watch to call for help, but deep in the mountains, there was no signal at all. She didn't know why the man had kidnapped her. At this moment, she had only one thought: to find a way to escape. Carefully, she took a small knife out of her pocket, and when the moment came, she cut the ropes with all her strength. Iris then stabbed Richard with the knife, but it wasn't enough to stop him. Richard didn't panic. He calmly looked at his watch. It turned out he had already injected her with a paralyzing drug. Soon, her body would start to lose control. In 10 minutes, her hands and feet would go numb. In 20 minutes, she'd lose all feeling in her legs. Her breathing would grow heavier, and she'd be unable to speak. Eventually, she would lose all mobility. Hearing this, Iris became terrified. Her first instinct was to run, because this might be her only chance to survive. She ran into the woods as fast as she could, but soon, the nightmare began to unfold. Her fingers started to go numb. Richard was getting closer and closer. Iris forced herself to run faster, but time was running out. If she wanted to live, she had to get out of the forest and find help within 20 minutes. Minute by minute, her strength faded. One of her legs was already numb. Richard was almost upon her. She had no choice but to hide under a hollow tree. But then something horrifying happened again. Ants started crawling out of the ground, biting at her wounds. Iris screamed in pain, unable to hold it in. Still, she refused to give up. Dragging her weakened body, she rolled herself into the river. Richard could only watch as his prey disappeared downstream. Iris floated along the current, barely conscious. She held her breath, letting the water carry her away. After an unknown amount of time, she finally washed up on the shore, but by then, she had only 2 minutes left. Her breathing had become shallow and labored. When the 20-minute countdown ended, Iris could still see and hear, but she could no longer move at all. Suddenly, she heard a loud mechanical roar. A lawnmower was coming straight toward her. Just then, an old man with a white beard Bill spotted her. He rushed over to check if she was okay, but she couldn't respond. When Bill turned her over, he noticed something strange. Iris couldn't move or speak, but her eyes were wide open, and she could still blink. Her mind was clear, completely awake. She blinked repeatedly to signal him. Bill quickly realized she was in danger. He lifted her onto a cart and took her to his cabin. Just as Bill was about to call the police, there came a sudden, frantic knock at the door. Iris blinked rapidly, warning him. Bill opened the door. Standing there was Richard, pretending to be in distress. He claimed he'd been in a car accident, and that his wife had gone missing. Bill immediately sensed something was off. He wasn't sure if Richard was telling the truth, so he prepared to call the police. But before he could, Richard suddenly forced his way inside. He looked around, but didn't see any sign of Iris. When Richard refused to leave, Bill picked up the phone again to call for help. Seeing this, Richard put on an act, crying and pretending to be pitiful, trying to win Bill's sympathy and trick him into revealing Iris's location. But what Richard didn't know was that Iris was hiding right beneath the seat, watching him with terrified eyes. Bill could already see through his lies. He reached for his phone to call the police, realizing his cover was blown. Richard lunged forward to snatch the phone. Bill quickly dialed for help, but Richard lost his patience completely. He decided to silence Bill once and for all.
Stay down.
But clearly, Richard was no match for Bill. Desperate, he grabbed a knife from the table. Richard poured gasoline all over the cabin, planning to burn everything down to destroy the evidence. Under the sofa, Iris could only watch helplessly as the man who had just saved her life was engulfed in flames. To avoid being consumed by the fire herself, she tried desperately to move, to make a sound, but her paralyzed body wouldn't respond. Just as Richard was about to leave, Iris used the last of her strength to pull the curtain, sending a faint signal to the outside. She had survived, but deep inside, she was still filled with fear, because she had no idea where Richard was taking her, or what terrifying thing might happen next. On the way, they stopped at a gas station. Richard left Iris alone in the car. This might have been her last chance to escape. She tried several times, and finally managed to unbuckle her seatbelt. She reached for the door, trying to call for help. A young boy walked by outside the window. Iris wanted to cry out, but no matter how hard she tried, no words came out. She could only stare at the boy and his mother, eyes filled with silent desperation. When Richard returned, they drove off again, and just like that, Iris lost her only chance to be rescued. Richard drove back to the spot where his car had crashed earlier. To eliminate any trace of what had happened, he planned to tow the vehicle somewhere safe. But then Iris noticed something. A police car had pulled up behind them. At the gas station, the mother and son had sensed something was wrong. After Richard left, they wrote down his license plate number and called the police. Now, the officer approached Richard for questioning. Richard quickly spun another story, claiming that his wife had been in a car accident and had gone missing, but the officer clearly didn't buy it. Just then, Iris, regaining a bit of movement, used all her remaining strength to lower the car window. The officer immediately stepped closer to check on her, and when he saw the state she was in, he realized something was very wrong.
How long has she been intoxicated? Officer, so you mind stepping back for me, please?
Later, Richard set the car ablaze the same way as before, but when he got back inside, he failed to notice that one of his syringes was missing. He then drove to a secluded riverside, thinking everything was under control. He let his guard down. Richard calmly pulled out another syringe. It was clear that Iris hadn't fully regained her strength. He dragged her onto a small wooden boat. Before long, they were out in the middle of the lake. Richard was ready to end her life there. Iris felt utterly hopeless after losing her son in a tragic accident. She had thought about ending her own life many times, but when death was staring her in the face, she realized how terrifying it truly was. And as Richard loomed over her, ready to strike, Iris didn't beg for mercy. Gunshots echoed across the lake. Richard fell into the water, disappearing beneath the surface. For the first time, Iris smiled. But it wasn't over yet. Water started flooding into the boat fast. When she fired the gun, she had punctured the hull. Panicking, she held her breath as the boat sank. Moments later, Iris miraculously floated to the surface. She struggled with all her might, kicking and swimming toward the shore. Finally, she made it, exhausted but alive. And in that moment, she understood something profound. No matter how harsh life can be, you have to stay strong and keep living. Never give up.
Thank you. You don't